Today we're going to be painting a toy. This is one of my old cars, and we're going to use it as a model because it's quite straightforward to paint, and hopefully it will inspire you to find a toy, something around the house that you'd like to have a go at painting. I'll be streaming live at the beginning of June as part of Communities Day at the School of Art and Design in Cardiff. So hopefully you'll be able to join me then and have your material ready to paint along with me. Near the time you'll get a link with the photo of our model, which will be another toy, and a list of materials that you might get. But in any case, as long as you've got some kind of brush, paper, and some watercolour, hopefully, if not some tea or maybe some Nescafe will do, it will give you a chance to paint along and learn something new. Watercolour is fun. It's easy in the respect that the materials are quite readily available, and you don't need a lot of space to do it. Is it easy? Well, you know, it's there's no technique in art that's easy or particularly hard. It just depends, you know, your attitude towards it. Just make it as simple as you can, and that's what I'm going to do today, trying to make this painting as simple as I can. So there you can see the model. That's what we're going to paint. So I'm going to start off by just marking out where roughly the car's going to go. Say the end's going to be there, the front there, top up here somewhere, bottom here, more or less. Okay, it's nice and simple. Okay, I mean, it's never going to be right the first time unless you're some kind of very, very gifted person that can tell how shapes interrelate automatically. Some people can do that. I'm afraid I can't. But, you know, you work with what you've got. So can you see it? It's kind of taking shape. So when you come to do yours, what you're going to try and do is just get into the hang of looking for the general shapes and how they relate to each other. So when I'm drawing these lines, what I'm actually doing is looking for all the spaces between, like the window, how it relates to the top, how it relates to the side, and sort of approximating more or less what the truck's going to look like. Okay, we're not too worried about, well, I'm not too worried about it being exactly like the one in front of me. I want to get as close as I can, but more importantly, I want the painting to look good, to look look quite pleasing, so, you know, at the end we can stick it on a wall or show our friends and be quite happy with the results. But again, you know, there's no point in doing too much detail now because we'll most likely change it as we paint. So I've got this box of paints here. These are pans of watercolor paint. You can buy individually and you can just place them in this box. Okay, but again, you don't have to use a whole bunch of colors. Just using one color is fine. I'm going to use predominantly orange. Okay, sometimes when I've got some paint like this, I'll have a little go on a piece of paper to make sure it's more or less the right color. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover the whole truck. Okay, so let's just do that. And then while I'm doing that, I can refine more or less the shape that it is. Okay, the whole thing. And it's quite good practice just to get in the hang of looking at the outline of the truck. So, you know, what's the shape of, you know, if you could only see the outline, what would it look like? Would you recognize it? Okay, so that's really good practice. Okay, so we're not worried about any details. At this stage, we're not even worried about any changes in colour, really. I think outline's quite a nice way into painting because you can get away with a lot. You can see some really good paintings, amazing paintings by artists, and they've put no detail at all, but the outline is so good that you can read all kinds of stuff into it. What I will do though is I'll put a shadow in. Okay, so a shadow is always nice because they're useful for bringing out the shape as well. So underneath the truck here, we've got a shadow coming out the back. Could kind of just make that into a shadow, something like that. And again there, and this nice shape underneath, like that. And you can see the moment I put a shadow in, how the forms begin to separate. And what's nice about watercolour, it's like an additive process. So you're adding colours on top of each other, and that darkens them, and so you end up building up your darks that way. With other mediums like a oil or acrylic, you tend to put in the value or the darkness you're looking for. In watercolour, you kind of build it up a bit slower, so you're kind of planning ahead a bit. Okay. Okay. Do that bumper as well, and we could do maybe the windows. Okay, so we're just building it up little by little. Okay, that's quite good. Also, I could use this same kind of shadow colour, which in this case is just a kind of what's it called? A Prussian blue, which is a kind of greeny blue. It comes out very green on the screen. It's not quite as green as that though, but I could use it for the back of the truck here. Can you see how it's kind of in shadow a bit? We don't need to use a red. We can use this blue instead. And we can use that to suggest the shadow, something like that. Oops. If you put too much paint on the paper, you can just dry your brush a bit and then take it off quite easily like that. So what we're trying to do is, instead of paint everything, we're just trying to suggest forms by doing the little shadows, if we can. Oh dear, try and take that off. It's quite nice working vertically. The only downside obviously is that the colours can run down a bit. Okay, so you put that back as well, sort of like if the whole of the back end is in shadow like that. Okay. Okay, that's looking all right. Should we try and ground this truck, instead of having it floating on the paper, we could put it on the ground. So let's just use, this is a colour I like a lot. It's raw umber. You may have heard that word. It's just a sort of like a greeny brown, which is quite nice. I think I'll use it just as it is to for the ground. Okay, so the ground is all this area here. As you can see me doing here, I'm going over parts I've painted already. And the effect is that what was dark now becomes even darker, because you're putting kind of one layer of paint on top of another layer. And it's, as I said, it's not like oil or acrylic where you can put a light colour on top and lighten the whole painting. It doesn't work that way. You know, you get this paint called gouache, which is, you know, slightly opaque, but it's still not, you know, enough to cover areas really. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the foreground, oops, and the background with just this raw umber. Just like having a background really, because it just sort of sets the scene, and so instead of just being like a sketch of a truck, you can kind of more easily make it into a story. Okay, so there we go. That's our truck. Now, if you want to carry on a bit with this, what we could do is maybe grab a slightly smaller brush, this one, for instance, and put some more red on. Okay, so this time I'm using this rather nice, can you see it here? It's quite a nice cadmium red, and we're going to use this for all the areas which are like the bonnet here, for example. That's quite nice, isn't it? Wow. Let's have it going down like that. Okay, it will dry lighter, and the top here maybe as well. That's nice. And the inside as well. We've given it a bit of a shadow already, but I think maybe we can leave a little gap. See, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to leave little gaps where the lighter colour shows through, so that we're not just obliterating everything each time, we're actually adding on. But in bits we are leaving like a space, or rather we're not covering it all, so that bits show through, and we get this kind of impression of darkness and light. Okay, now it's all sort of blended in a bit, but can you see this gives the impression that light's hitting it from the side. Maybe it's still a bit light, so I think I'm still going to paint it. Maybe I'll put a bit of orange in it, make it a bit more orange and a bit lighter, you know, a bit lighter than the last one. Let's have a look. We can always go a bit darker as well. So can you see how it's kind of, I'm going to leave a bit of light there at the front, so just to reproduce that kind of sheen. So I made mine kind of orange, which is a bit different than the one you can see in front, but I think it's important to not worry too much about the model, but rather try and make our own painting nice. So I'm leaving a little gap there, I think, just to give the idea of that, whatever it is, on the side of the truck. Okay. It's quite nice. Now let's work the underside, underneath the wheels a bit. Let's go back to the shadows. It was nice to work the figure a bit, so working the truck, but also working the background or the shadow underneath, because otherwise, as I said, we'll end up with a truck floating in space, and we really want to give it a story, so it needs to have some kind of context. So we could go in to here. As I said, don't worry if your watercolor kind of goes a bit funny and starts wandering a bit. Watercolor does do that. That's fine. I think what watercolor teaches you more than anything else is not to be too precious about your work, because it's never gonna end up exactly like you thought it would. And I think that's quite a nice thing, really. It just makes you be a bit less precious. Although I do tend to be a bit precious about my watercolors, I suppose. Too much doesn't help me. Okay. As I say, when you do yours, you can spend a long time over it, or you can just spend a few moments doing it. It really doesn't matter. It's all about practice. It's a bit like people where they talk about doing exercise, and they say, well, you know, you just do as much as you can, because after all, it's, you know, it's your own body, and this is, you know, your own mind. You know, you're not, you know, none of us are going to get any sort of prizes by doing these. We're just going to get, just going to enjoy ourselves a bit, and learn something new. Okay. How's that doing? It's kind of nice. I kind of like some bits as they're coming out. It's quite nice having the screen in front of me there, because I can see this here, and I can see how different it looks over there. I'm going to go back into this the boot a bit here. Not the boot. What's it called? The back of the truck. What's it called? The flatbed. Is that the term? I don't know. But what this is doing is giving it slightly more drama, which is quite nice. You can give little things there as well. Side of the door, possibly. Yeah. I'm not sure how it's supposed to go. I've got that wrong. Doesn't really matter. And something like that. Should we make the back slightly darker? So go back in with a bit of slightly different red. Okay. And do that bit maybe like that, and I don't know what I've picked up there, sort of different red altogether. I wasn't really intending that, but I'm sure it's fine. So use it here a bit. And then down here possibly like that. What do you reckon? A bit more red at the front. Try and steer away from the red I've just used, because it's a bit odd. Let's try this one. I think it's got some blue in it or something. Oh well. Okay. Let's get some yellow. Oh. Right. One bit I've forgotten to do is the wheels. Okay, so I'll get back to that now. Okay, so I should put it as kind of grey. If I've got an orange here, if you can see it, an orange, I can put a bit of that sort of blue in here. Where is it? Over here. And maybe that will give me a kind of grey, which would be quite nice, kind of browny grey. Okay, I can use that for the wheels. So it's a bit of a light hitting the back there, so I'll leave that like that, and it's going to give me a bit of a shadow there. And then maybe I can give it a bit more shadow. I quite like this shadow underneath here, so maybe if I gave it a bit more of that, it'd be quite nice. Kind of joins it to the ground a bit. And as I said, it creates some kind of story for us. You know, it's instead of being just static there, it's actually speeding along the ground somewhere, maybe in Arizona. Well, there's our car. If we wanted to do something else to it, we could put a background in. Just inventing a background would be quite nice. We could imagine that it's speeding along, say, a bunch of trees or something. Should we do that? Let's try putting nice green, which will be like an opposite color to it, and create some trees speeding past like this. And so we could have maybe the ones at the front could still have a kind of bit of a shape, because you know they're still up there somewhere, and then the ones at towards the back are more of a blur, possibly. Don't know. And then we could imagine that there's a little house at the back as well. So. gosh, I can see the contrast on here is gone a bit funny, so well, doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, you know, you can play with it, you can create little figures here. Side of the road, you can, I don't know, just play around with it a bit, and there you go. So it's maybe some the other sidewalk there. There we go. Okay, so there we go. There's our truck, and that's to give you an idea what we can do together on our next live stream, and so you can get some idea. If you want to have a practice first, some toys, or if during the live stream you can bring your own toy and paint that while I paint something else. It'll be on YouTube, so you will be able to type in questions which I can answer during the live stream. So any questions you have about materials, about technique, about where to get stuff. I'm in Cardiff here, so you know, if you ask me about local things, you know, I can answer easier. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you on the next live stream. Until then, bye bye.